Footy Journos back here at the Newcastle United training ground for the third Eddie Howe press conference in the last 4 days. And same again really, wasn't it, Jordan? We'll start where we usually start, outside of the transfer window, which was on the injury front, which ties into injuries slightly. Newcastle obviously making a tough trip down to Villa Park tomorrow night. Late kick-off again. Eddie Howe expressed his sympathy for the travelling Newcastle fans, particularly after the Fulham game as well, where it was a late kick-off down in London. But yeah, injury-wise, I guess no fresh news other than potentially Miguel Almiron, Jordan.
No fresh news at all. I think he was, before touch on Almiron, he was asked about the likes of your Willocks, your Barnes, Callum Wilson, but he said Callum Wilson wasn't a setback as such, because I think, previously I'd stated that Callum Wilson would be back for this game. That won't be the case.
Didn't see that coming.
Yeah, I know. He's always really honest with injury news, Eddie. So yeah, so still without those players, but yeah, could have Almiron back. I should have Almiron back. Really hopes to. Obviously missed the weekend through illness. A lot of transfer speculation, which again we've touched upon lots of times. With videos over the last week, but he hopes to have him back in the squad tomorrow, which would be a boost to have to see two right wingers in the squad after Jacob Murphy's return at the weekend. So yeah, the injury news is slightly getting better, but would class Almiron as a fresh sort of concern. He was at the weekend, but you think about the players who have been out for a while. You want to get those players back. I'm waffling here, Don.
Yeah, well, Miguel Almiron's involvement at Aston Villa will be telling, because the Saudi Arabian transfer window closes tomorrow. So if he's involved, you can safely assume, it's never safe to completely assume, but you'd imagine he will not be going anywhere. So expected to train today. You can just about see the training pitch. Not allowed to film it though. Just getting sorted at the moment. Miguel Almiron is expected to be there. I asked Eddie Howe, would Miguel Almiron be involved in training today? And he said he hopes so, unless I know something he doesn't. And I'll hold my hands up, I don't know anything Eddie Howe doesn't know. So yeah, his involvement will be telling. Another player he was asked about was Jamal Lascelles, who missed the game at the weekend at Fulham, and he doesn't expect him to be involved, but potentially a late call will be made there. He's obviously subject to transfer interest from Turkey, which Eddie Howe has consistently denied, to be fair to him. So yeah, on the transfer front, there's some news breaking this morning. Do you want to go on to that?
Yeah, news of an approach for Jacob Ramsey, the Athletic, David Ormstein first to that, but Eddie Howe has denied that's the case. Whether he's got sort of mixed up and think that approach means a transfer bid or whatever, obviously unlikely, but I don't know if he's got a little bit mixed up. But David Ormstein as a journalist is very well respected, so I don't want to sit here and shut down his story, but Eddie Howe did openly deny that there wasn't.
Denied it twice. He was asked twice.
He denied there was approach for Jacob Ramsey, and then on that as well, if we stick on the theme of potential incomings, Eddie Howe did say, Don, that they would have to sell if they were to strengthen in the final days of the transfer window, and said that the likelihood of an incoming is becoming lesser and lesser by the hour as we tick towards that deadline. So for all the noise that has been around Newcastle United, it seems to be changing sort of every day, but from Saturday to now, it does feel like Newcastle are probably going to keep the same squad together. And I do think what you mentioned before about Almiron is quite an important point, that if Almiron isn't there tomorrow, I mean, he could still be ill. Let's not rule out that possibility. But if he isn't at Villa Park tomorrow night, then I think we might be making a few phone calls whilst we're at Villa Park.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the time is probably against Newcastle. They are going to have to get a player out to bring a player in, and to do that in the space of a few days could be difficult when you've got a game also in that time as well. Eddie Howe used the word, it would be impossible for Newcastle to sign a player this transfer window unless someone went out, which is probably adds credence to what we've discussed in Miguel Almiron being almost poised and ready for a move. But if they haven't got identified a player to bring in, then that won't be green lit. So yeah, as it stands, Miguel Almiron is, he didn't say expected, but hopes to be involved at Villa tomorrow night. And as I say, I think that would end any real speculation regarding a move with him, at least for this transfer window, to Saudi Arabia. But yeah, on transfers, what else did he say? I think that pretty much summed it up.
Yeah, we don't want to go over old ground because, as I say, we've
discussed transfers.
Yeah, us as a channel have discussed transfers a lot, so I'm really wary to repeat myself, and I would urge everyone, if you want to hear our views on transfers, to go and check out the video from Saturday after Fulham, which was a deep dive on transfers, and also the one on I think it was Wednesday or went up Thursday when we sat in Gosfaf and discussed it then. So I think Eddie Howe said ultimately there's nothing changed on the transfer front. He's waiting to see what happens, and what he means by that is it's ultimately, if a player goes, then probably Newcastle will rush around to get a player in. But I don't know, maybe I'm getting me words, but it does feel like, as I say, as I get closer to that window, that Newcastle will retain the full squad. And it's interesting how the dynamic has changed in this transfer window, because I think we would have been stood here, Dom, at the start of January, saying, you know, where should Newcastle strengthen, where Newcastle need to strengthen. I think I would have named 3 positions, and the dynamic has changed from Newcastle need to strengthen this January to actually Newcastle United just need to keep the squad together.
It all comes back to that Darren Eales interview, which seemed to have turned the transfer window on its head and changed the entire narrative of Newcastle's transfer window from, okay, hopefully we can bring some incomings, to hopefully we can keep hold of everyone, and if we are going to sign a player, it's going to be at the cost of selling one. So yeah, just changed the entire narrative. But yeah, it's been noisy but quiet is probably the best way to put it. And yeah, if Newcastle are going to sign a player, unfortunately, it'll mean we'll probably see one leave. But as things stand at the moment, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. But enough time left for something to happen. But it is getting to that mark where it's maybe too late to do anything major. At least maybe a quiet loan signing in a sneaky deadline day deal, things like that. But we're not hearing an awful lot at the moment in that regard. So yeah, I think we probably could go somewhere where we don't usually and talk about the actual game tomorrow night. Yeah, I was about to say we'll often skirt over it. It becomes almost the second thought in an Eddie Howe press conference. But Villa obviously having a great season. Newcastle beat Aston Villa 5-1 on the opening day. Villa beat Newcastle 3-0 at Villa Park on the last visit to their last season. So yeah, it's a tough one to call in many ways, but Villa's form at home has been incredible, and they're having a season really that in many ways has mirrored what Newcastle did last season.
Yeah, I mean,
so yeah, as you can probably tell, we've been kicked out once again, ran over again, and yeah, we're on a bit of a streak for getting kicked out. I think that's 3 videos in a row we've been kicked out. But yeah, Jordan, on Aston Villa, speaking about them, how their season sort of mirrors Newcastle last season, while also, to be fair to them, competing in Europe, and their home record has been incredible.
Yeah, it really has. We've got the stats up there. Maximum points bar draw with Sheffield United on the 21st of December, which, yeah, it's incredible record. I've watched Villa many times this season. Obviously, taking the first game of the season out of the equation, they're a really good side, and I do expect them to go on and get top 4. I think that top 4 now is almost settled, bar probably a Spurs can challenge. So yeah, it's a really difficult game, and a game you could probably want to do without. But Newcastle now have got themselves in a position where they need to start going the likes of Aston Villa and getting a result if they've got ambitions themselves to go up and challenge that top 6. Because look, we can view this game negatively and say, oh, what a bad game to have, but if they don't get a result tomorrow, it probably sends out a little statement of intent of themselves, and they can give themselves a little bit of confidence and suggest, that Newcastle United of last season are back as well. So I think, although it's a very tough game, it's a real opportunity to silence a few critics, if you like, and just show to everyone that this Newcastle United team, the injuries have affected them, and the less amount of games they can get back to their best levels. Because I think there's been signs there in certain games, certainly not on Saturday. I thought the Fulham, as we've probably touched upon, the Fulham performance wasn't great in the slightest. It wasn't Newcastle's best performance, but I think there's been moments this season, probably for most games, 60 minutes, where Newcastle have looked the team that they can be, and they just need to maintain that. And I do think Aston Villa is a very good opportunity. Last season they played them off the park, didn't they? Villa, it was one of the few games where Newcastle came away and got absolutely hammered. But I think that again the 2 games that they played this season, you want to count the one in pre-season, closely fought. The one on the first day of the season, I think we've touched upon it before, was quite a strange game, because probably for an hour of that game it was even, but then Newcastle were able to bring the likes of Harvey Barnes off the bench and managed to sort of surge to victory. I think there wasn't a 5-1 scoreline that day. So if you look at history between the two sides, bar that game of Villa Park last season, it's probably been fairly even this season anyway. I know it was a heavy scoreline at St James's Park, but I think the two sides are even on the day when Newcastle are at their best form. I think they can match Aston Villa. Where they can currently remains to be seen, but it's an opportunity to say, I'm probably doubting Newcastle more, but it's an opportunity to not just prove myself wrong, but there'll be a lot of people who probably think like me, saying that's such a tough place to go. But no, why can't they go and get a result? Then if they prove that, then there'll be a lot of optimism heading into the second half of the season.
Yeah, the FA Cup wins have certainly provided some positivity in recent weeks, but in many ways probably sort of papered over the cracks in terms of the league form, where look, Newcastle have lost 4 games in a row. They lost 5 games all of last season. Before that, even they beat Fulham 3-0. Before that, beaten heavily by Spurs and Everton. They need to stop this rot in the Premier League, and beaten Villa for the first time this season at Villa Park. Villa unbeaten there, as Jordan said. I think it's 28 points out of a possible 30 at Villa Park. Incredible. It's a big reason why they are where they are in the Premier League. And again, going back to mirroring Newcastle's form last season, their home form was key to that. So yeah, I think if Newcastle, like Jordan says, have any ambitions to really push on and challenge those European places, they need to start picking up results away from home, full stop. And also challenging the likes of Aston Villa, the teams that want to be in and around in the Premier League table as well. Because while the FA Cup, they've won the last 2 away games in the FA Cup ultimately, but they're unbeaten in the last 4 cup games, I think it is, because you go back to PSG and then Manchester United as well. So in the league though, still haven't won an away game since Sheffield United all the way back in September. So really need Harvey Barnes to return, because that was his last game. Hopefully Newcastle can get things back on track soon, and I think Villa would be a perfect way to do that. But we all know, look at the league table, look at Villa's form, everything would suggest this is going to be a really difficult game for Newcastle United tomorrow night. Yeah,
so we'll be there.
Yes.
Again, following Newcastle home and away. So yeah, I think we've probably got with doubts over Newcastle getting a result tomorrow, but I say hopefully Eddie Howe's men can prove us journalists wrong and many other supporters wrong out there as well. But yeah, we'll be at Villa Park, so we'll be joined by Liam. I think he's toying with the idea. Who knows? He's toying with the idea of possibly not coming. He was a bit unwell yesterday on the train back. Came down with sounded like a bit of illness. Possibly picked up from Miguel Almiron. Who knows?
The transfer window's made him sick as well.
But me and you, Dom, we'll definitely be there. So yeah, please everyone, like, comment, share, and subscribe. We all really appreciate your support, and we'll see you at Villa Park on Tuesday.